So, hello all, and welcome to the Spiritual Hitchhiker's Practical Guide to the Afterlife and Beyond. This is Dr. Bruce, hoping that you're here, or that you will soon be here, because of just explaining that we did have some technical glitches, and I blamed it on Mercury retrograde, but it's really not. Okay, I'm lying when I say that, although it is particularly nasty this year, so I hear. Because of an incompatibility between the equipment that I'm using and that Brownell is using. So we had to, only last night when we were testing it out, we decided we're going to switch over to Zoom just for this particular one. Well, I am so excited about today's show because my very special guest is my friend and colleague, Brownell Landrum. And Brownell, for those of you who don't know, is the creator and principal admin of a sister group to ours named Life is a Trip. Reincarnation, past life stories, afterlife, and more. And I just love that name. She's also executive producer of the Life is a Trip Reincarnation Stories podcast and the author of over a dozen screenplays and books with a metaphysical message. We're going to be talking about her extraordinary and very personal story entitled The End, which is hopefully still available free to members of the group. Is it still available? Okay,
Absolutely, absolutely.
good.
We can send you a link. I can put a,
What we'll do, what
I
we'll
want to
do,
make sure
we
everybody
will
gets
post
gets
that.
to read
We
it.
will
Yeah.
post that again. It's there in the group, but probably all the way down. But so let's go ahead and get that posted in the group so that the people who go to the group can find it very easily. When I read the story, I was absolutely blown away. And I couldn't wait to share it with you. It's so fun and simple, yet so profound with many layers deep, asking questions like, is the end ever really the end? If it's a reincarnation story. Uh, do you believe things, especially special relationship connections, happen for a reason? Have you ever wondered if events in your life might be being facilitated by a team of guides and angels upstairs? That's a really interesting concept that I'd never really considered before. So, introducing Brownell. And Brownell, you said that your story, The End, is your most personal writing to date. What inspired you to write this story? So tell us I guess you call it the genesis of the story.
Yeah, I kind of have to go a little bit back in time because what started basically a year ago. Maybe it started a little before that, but then you'll understand when I say that. But just a year ago, a little over a year ago, I was living in Colorado, and my landlord sends me a notice saying he's raising the rent 50%. And 50% is a lot. So I was like, okay, I got to do something. And it set me on a journey. And I don't know if any of y'all have had this experience. And when we get to questions, I can't wait to find out if anybody has. But so much of my life, I've been really kind of goal oriented and like, okay, I watch and listen and read all the things like, decide on your path and then make your plans and make it happen. And I don't know about anybody else, but I just kept running into roadblock after roadblock. And so life was just like, I wanted to go here and I was just not going to get there. And the raising the rent was one of them. So I thought, well, I'm going to go to Italy for a year. And all of a sudden, no, they're not even taking applications for visas. So I had no option of doing that. And then I'm like, well, if I can go to Italy for 3 months, but I have to go somewhere else for 3 months. And I started looking at places outside of the European Union, found Tunisia, which I'd had a little bit of an exposure to a few years old. One of my fans of my original novels is in Tunisia, which was really fun for me. And it's only 92 miles from Sicily. So I was like, okay, I'll go to Tunisia for 3 months. And I found this beautiful resort on the Mediterranean, $1,000 a month, including 2 meals a day. So I'm like, okay, there you go. And so I signed up for that, and then I went on my journey. I went to in October. I went to to Italy for 3 months, and then I went on to Tunisia. And I had a really, really interesting experience when I got to Tunisia. And a few weeks later, I'm talking to somebody. I've got somebody helping me kind of know how to navigate getting my books out into the world because I've got a new trilogy, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. But I've got a new trilogy coming out next month, and I'm so excited. And a little spoiler, a little bit of it is tied to Italy. So that's kind of one of the reasons I went to Italy, but I'll come back to that. And so she's like, you have to write a story that helps you with your book so people can read something about you. Well, I've never really written anything personal. I might have thrown a little anecdote in some of my books before, but never like a personal story. And I'm writing this story. And as I'm writing it, I'm realizing I'm writing the truth. And ever since that moment, it's just changed everything in my life. And as Bruce says, I wrote it from the point of view of the upstairs, I call it. And if you know anything about my writing or my Facebook group called Life is a Trip or my podcast, it's all about stories, whether fictional or factual. And so I tell people, if you think you have a past life memory, just start writing it. And it may or may not be true. And guess what? Nobody's going to judge you, not at least not in my group or not on my podcast. And the stories themselves, sometimes fiction has more power than fact. So just go for it. And so I'm writing it and I'm realizing that I'm going to write it from the point of view. In fact, I guess really they wrote it from the point of view of what I call the upstairs. And so from the point of view of like this team, and I call it X is a guide, is the name of a guide, Y is the name of another guide, and then I have what I call the Z's, and the Z's are what I normally call in my other writing traffic angels. And I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but I think I look at traffic angels as being like the logistics people. That if you're here and someone else is here and you need to get together with them, they're the ones who navigate all of that and try to pull people together. And as I'm writing this, and I'm writing this true story about this experience, and as Bruce kind of hinted, it's a little bit of a love story, and it's also like, is the end ever the end if it's a reincarnation story, right? Because you can never know where the end is going to be. And but it was just so incredible because I'm writing it, realizing this team that I'm writing about is real, and they have made themselves very much available and assisting me since all of this began. And I started realizing all those obstacles that I thought I was running into. I look at them like border collies. Like, I want to go here, and they're going, no, you're going over here. And they're going to knock me back on track.
That's a great analogy. I like that.
Where they want me to go. And sometimes they'll just headbutt me, in a direction. So anyway, that's a long answer to your short question, which is how did us all get on paper and get me to write it?
Well, where did you come up with that? It's written from a unique perspective of what you call the team upstairs as they try to unite a couple. Where did you come up with that? I think original idea for a story.
I think we have to ask them because I think they were writing it. They were wanting me to be aware that they were there, and so they just kind of like told me what to write. So I'm just writing it. At first I'm thinking this would be fun to write it from the point of view of the other side, right? Or the upstairs, as I call it. And then what is it that they want me to tell? And again, it is, as we'll get into, I'm sure you're going to ask me questions about like the love story aspect of it, but it was definitely this team orchestrating me to meet somebody. And I was an American woman in Colorado, and they wanted me to meet a British man, and somehow in Tunisia. Like how they had to do those logistics is really pretty wild. So it's really fun.
That is wild. It reminds me of the traffic cops from I remember growing up, and I'd watch them at the intersection go like this, and you go there, and you go there. That's what it sounds like to me, traffic cops.
Yeah.
But in the story, you introduced the concept of guides and traffic. You call them traffic angels. So explain what they are and how they played into your real story.
Yeah, as you'll know if you read it, and some of you may have read it, some of you may not have. So I'm going to probably do a little spoiling because there's things in it that, but it's a 9,000 word story, so you'll zoom through it pretty fast. And but as I look at them, and I've kind of had this belief in traffic angels, and I guess I'll kind of give you a macro answer, and that if anybody has read the Michael Newton books. And you can do wave your hand or something if you've read Michael Newton. But one of the things he talks about is that we have jobs on the other side, that when we're not here, there are things we do when we're not here. And he also talks about the fact that while we're here, not all of us are here, right? There's a percentage of us in the upstairs, if you will. And so then you think, okay, well, what kind of jobs do we do? And some of you may have your own stories about what you know that you do. And Bruce, I want to talk to you about yours and what you do. And so I think that some are, maybe they really are like the air traffic controllers when they're on Earth, but up there, like, oh, this plane can't hit into that plane, or how do we get this, redirect this traffic? But I do think
But you
that there
believe
are
that.
guides.
You believe what you base that on their job is to bring people together. In Michael Newton's books and in the past life regressions that I do. I mean, I've been doing this for 50 years. I know sometimes the job of them is to slap a person upside the head sometime during their lifetime, but that's a different concept. We're actually bringing people together. Was that a new concept to you? Did you already believe it?
I already believed it. I knew that there were there were those kind of energies. I just never really, until I wrote the story, realized how a few things. One was why my life was not manifesting the way I wanted it to, is because I needed to surrender and let them take over. And I needed to be able to listen to them, what they wanted, and I had to go through this experience. And I also last fall, and I'm going to put a big caveat as I tell you this story, but last fall I went to Barcelona. When I was in Italy, I flew over to Barcelona and I did a Bufo trip, a DMT trip. And I don't know how many of y'all have done that, but it's a medicine, it's a psychedelic, but what it is a medicine that opens up the neurotransmitters of the brain. And there's really incredible research, and Barcelona is totally safe, medically supervised, legal, all the good stuff. Never, never, never do Bufo or DMT or any of that unless you've got all the right legalities and medical checklist. I can't stress that enough because it is very, very powerful. And what it did, I think, is opened up my neurotransmitters so I could get this message as I'm writing this story. And so I was able to kind of see, I don't know, I believed in traffic angels, but I never saw how they were trying to influence me, and why all the things that didn't work out, or like, oh, why couldn't I get a visa for a year? Oh, well, because they wanted to meet this person. And the profound impact that meeting him and learning from him and all of the other experiences, have just been, have just been life-changing. And so it was fun writing this. And like you said, it's a fun story, right? They're real, and they've got real personalities, and they bicker and they tease, and it's all really fun.
But it was written as fictional. But how much of it is real?
Well,
Are we getting into the area of soap operas now? As the world turns.
Yeah, yes. Well, I will tell you, I'll give you a few different answers to that. A lot of it's real, obviously. Some of it takes place in the future, so the future is going to have to determine whether that part's real or not, right? So I kind of projected from now to the future. And I am also, I've been entertaining ever since I wrote it, and I wrote it kind of in January. And then I kind of had to rewrite it because real life was changing it, and so I had to do an edit in May. And then just this week, I started writing the sequel to it. And that is also fiction, but I have a feeling as I'm writing it, it's going to start turning into something that's like, oh, it's like watching yourself on TV or something, like, and you're typing here and then you see an image there, like you're making it happen. It's really cool.
So there is a sequel, an upcoming sequel.
Yeah, I'm started to write it, and it's gonna also be pretty mind expanding. I mean, I talked about this, Bruce. I've had a couple of different people tell me they think this short story, 9,000 words, could be a college course. They think it's so packed with so much perspective and discussion and everything. So we're just happy to have all y'all here so we can discuss it, because it's fun.
So just as conjecture, how do you think relationships might be different if those who are part of the relationship knew about the efforts of a team upstairs, if they knew that they were being brought together for a reason with support from the other side?
Well, can I turn it on you? What do you think? I mean, like you work with a lot of people and you've been working with a lot of people for a long time. How might your work be different if your clients knew that there was otherworldly forces that are there to assist them? You know, I mean, and anybody here, you know, what do you think? And I'll answer for me, but I'd love to know what you think, Bruce.
Yeah, I think, well, from that perspective, and if a client is looking for the type of session in which they were looking for things like relationships, they don't always do, but many times they do. I think it could really offer a lot of enlightenment and insight to a client if they can see things from that particular perspective. And it would really give them pause to think and probably change or at least redirect their relationships in a particular way.
Yeah, and, you know, absolutely. And I will tell you again, this is so personal, and so y'all are getting to see the, you know, the real kind of like behind, you know, the behind the curtain, you know, in the Wizard of Oz, you know. Um, you know, as I've been going through this experience and realizing that this team is real and that they're here to help me and they're here to help, you know, me navigate what is and what, you know, it's called the end for a reason. So there's a little
Mhm.
bit of a spoiler, but what was it all about? And the learning and growth and expansion that I've had in this experience. And it's so incredible because when I'm doing things they want me to do, they will give me so much joy. Like I will just be happy, happy, happy that day. And if I'm kind of off track, I might either hear crickets or might even not, you know, get so much good information. So they really are good at reinforcing when I am doing what they want me to do.
Mhm.
And when I'm not necessarily, like I went through something in the last few days, for example, and it was like, okay, I feel like I'm at a dead end. What am I going to do here? And then all of a sudden, okay, I can't move on. And I don't know about any of y'all, like you can be in any kind of relationship, and let's say it's not going the way you want it to go, but then you realize, I can't, why am I not letting this go? And sometimes it could be all kinds of reasons. That could be your own emotional reasons, whatever. But for me, you know, as somebody who, my first book is called The 5 Reasons Why Bad Things Happen. So I'm kind of like, when people say things happen for a reason, I literally wrote the book on it. And so, and why is a big theme through all my writing. And so I keep thinking, why? Why am I still stuck on this? Why am I trying to connect to this? What do I need to, because I need to learn something. I need to learn something or do something before I can let it go. And I don't know if you've ever read any Mark Manson's book. He wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a You Know What. And one of the quotes I love from his book is, happiness is solving problems. And I just was like, I've got to solve this problem. And then just in the last couple of days, really almost even just yesterday, really, I was like, oh, that's my message. That's what I needed to learn. And then again, woo, I'm having a good day. It's a happy day. I feel good. You know, it's just joy because they will give me that joy. And I just never really realized how they can just jam you with joy if you're
How do
if
they do
you're
it?
on track.
How do they give you those directions, those messages? Is it in a meditative state? Did you just come from out of the blue, different time during the day?
Yes, I spend a lot of time alone, and I spend, of course, as in writing and that kind of thing, and introspection, and a lot of time in meditative state. And meditative state can be at the gym or going for a walk or lying
Yeah,
in bed. You know, it doesn't have to
absolutely.
necessarily be, you know, sitting on a yoga mat.
Yeah.
But I will be like, okay, what's going on here? What's going on here? Help me understand, help me figure this out. And then they will come in and then I'm just like, oh, and it just feels like, you know, you're in a dark, cloudy day, and all of a sudden the light streams through, and I get the message, and I understand what that's about. And you know, for me, until you get that lesson or you figure out the why, it's really hard to let it go, right? It's really hard to just move on and just kind of tuck it away, especially if that's what they want, right? They want me to learn this lesson.
Yeah, I think for anybody who writes fiction, particularly, not so much nonfiction, but fiction, I think that would be a natural process because that's where it is said, and I haven't haven't wrote much fiction, but I think it's the way it's been explained to me is that the story tells itself, and the characters take on a life of their own. So, do you find that when you're writing a novel or a short story, that puts you in the meditative state, and that maybe the direction that those characters take somehow influence your particular direction?
I absolutely. There's a great quote from Bob Dylan about writing songs, and he said, and it says something like, the song was there before I came along. I just got the pencil and wrote it down. So, and there's also Liz Gilbert who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. She's got a really great book called Big Magic about the fact that these ideas are bubbles around us, and they will land on the right person to get the message across. And
Hmm.
maybe those bubbles are angels or some sort of energetic beings that have their own, interest. And when you do start bringing that to life, you start wondering, like, that's why I think it's so important for me in the Facebook group as well as on our podcast that it can be fictional or factual because the lines blend a lot. In fact, I will, tell you about the novel trilogy that I'm coming out with. It's about a famous couple from history who are reincarnated today to fulfill a prophecy that will change the world.
Hmm.
And I already gave you a little spoiler. A lot of it's set in Italy, so you can do a little bit of kind of magical thinking on that. And as I'm writing, and as I even went through the Bufo trip, if anybody wants to hear about my Bufo trip, let me know, and I can send you an article I wrote on it. Um, that the one of the members of that famous couple came to me. Now, can I prove that this person came to me? No. I mean, a lot of you have had NDEs or your clients have had regressions. Can you prove it? Who cares? There's still something in there. So that message is coming through me, and it's being guided somehow through me so that I'm tapping in. Even Stephen King, who writes horror, says, it's like digging into the dirt and you're finding the treasure, but the treasure was already there.
Yeah. Well, you
So
use an interesting word. You say proof. I take pains to point out to people that although I've been doing the thousands of past life regressions, I'd be the first to admit there is no proof for reincarnation. Absolutely no proof. There is highly suggestive evidence. Those aren't my words. That's what's his name? Ian Stevenson's words.
yeah.
And I think Tucker probably used those words, the fellow who took over for Stevenson, University of Virginia, that there's highly suggestive evidence that is difficult to explain in any other way. So it's not, you can't, at this point, you can't give proof like you can give proof that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Like the proof that the earth is round and not flat, contrary to the a flat earth uh, people out there. Okay. But I say the evidence is highly, highly suggestive. Have you ever had any other synchronicities in your life that might have guided you to a particular person or place or situation?
Well, yes, and of course it relates to what you do for a living, right? Is that the first past life memory I had was very much tied to, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was very much tied to another relationship I had. And then I turned in to find out that relationship not only is a memory, but also had a soul contract. So I had to see what was happening with the fact that we knew we were going to reincarnate at the same time, and we knew we kept circling back to each other until we could resolve what that was about. So I think those are the synchronicities. You meet somebody, and sometimes one partner is more attuned to the fact that it's happening for a reason, and there's something bigger than just I think you're cute or I want to hang with you. That there's like some sort of powerful message. In fact, I'll give you another story that I thought was interesting. Is that this is many years ago, but I met a man, and I met him, again, coincidence. I met him on Mother's Day, a year after his mother in this lifetime had committed suicide. And I had been his mother in a previous lifetime.
Mm.
So what, like what did that mean, right? What was that all about? And I mean, I'm still, would say close to him, but I've heard from him, and this was so many years ago. There's still like a really, really powerful bond with him, and it transcends that stuff. So I think, don't we all have those experiences, right? It's just how much we dig into what do they mean, and I'm kind of like dog with a bone. I want to keep figuring out the why. That's all. It's all about the
Well,
why.
yeah, your story touches on the age-old, more than touches on the age-old question, fate versus free will. Wouldn't you agree? And
Totally.
what's your feeling of that on that? Fate versus free will.
Yeah, I talk about it a lot in my first book, and then my novels kind of obviously kind of delve into that. I think we have free will in two places. I think we have free will before we're born, as we're deciding on our life, as we're choosing a body, and in fact, I wrote a children's book, and I can read. I'll just read a couple of verses from it because it kind of gives that idea. It's like, and it says, "We decide on our lessons, the paths we will take, awards we might go for, and mistakes we might make. For life isn't easy and not always fun, but easy is boring, like games always won." So, it's kind of like that. We sit there and go, okay, what do we want to learn in this lifetime? Who do we want to hang with? Can they help us learn? I think there's a lot of reasons we get born. I mean, sometimes we might just want to, this person's going, so I'll go because they're always fun to hang with. Or I've got to learn this lesson so I can progress. Or I've got a purpose and I need to change the world. And I'm the one to be part of that team that does that. So there's a lot of those kinds of things. So I think that before we're born, the way I look at it is kind of like a roadmap that we draw out key intersections, key opportunities. And then when we get here, the fate versus free will comes in terms of, do we sit at an intersection our whole life? Do we keep turning right and go in circles? Do we go the high road or the low road, or do we go off road? And those are the other decisions. And then with this story, it added another dimension to it, which is, what do they want? Where are they involved? And I always thought that they were only going to be involved if we asked for them to be involved, right? That we could separate ourselves from the divine, or the angelic realm, or the upstairs, or whatever you want to call it, and not listen. And I think that's still true, because I probably was asking my whole life, come on, help me out. I want to go here. Why can't you help me there? I just didn't know they were going to be like border collies taking me on whatever that roadmap. They may have taken me off road, but that's what they wanted to do. So I have to take into account that aspect of it.
Yeah, just going back a little bit to knowing everything happens for a reason. As you say, you literally wrote the book. But tell us how knowing the reasons why impacted your writing the end.
That's a really good question as far as how they tie together. I mean, everything I am about is about the why. And so, but I'm writing the end just as a story, right? I mean, first I just think, oh, let's write it from the point of view of the upstairs, and let's write this team, and let's come up with names for them and personalities for them. And then they started telling me what they wanted me to write. And so, as I'm writing, I'm doing that. I think that it wasn't until I started realizing that they were real, that I was going way beyond fiction, that then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now I know why. And then all the whys fell together, like or came together. Why I couldn't get a visa, why I got kicked out of the apartment, why I went on this adventure. I mean, all the whys were leading me to meet this person. And I will tell you about one thing about him is, we all have our different dimensions to us. And I don't know how many of y'all, and I don't know how much you do this in your practice, Bruce, but to actually go and meet somebody's higher self, right? So that you're might be in a regression. Of course, you will connect with your own guides and that kind of thing. But if you meet with somebody else, and this person had the most powerful higher self I've ever seen, and also was dealing with earth issues that are challenging. So the why, you sit there and go, well, what's happening here? And how do you help somebody in that situation? So the whys happen every day when it comes to figuring out this story and this relationship and this, message, and what does it mean to me, and what's next. And then I started writing the sequel. So we'll see how that writes.
If you could know what the outcome of a relationship would be, would you want to know? And would you change things?
That's also a great question, and I'm really curious what some of our listeners. So hopefully we can open it up to them and get them to give their feedback on any of this. Um, I think, I mean, sometimes yes and sometimes no, because sometimes you are given signs and you ignore them, right? Sometimes you're told, basically it's like, is this really going to go the direction you think you want it to go? And I think at the end of the day, it would be, did I learn something? Did it move me forward, even if it didn't move the relationship forward? And that's the message I would want to get the answer to. A lot of relationships, can be a lot of pain and a lot of hurt. And I'm not going to lie, there was in this, there were a lot of obstacles. Of course, good storytelling. I've been telling Bruce he needs to write fiction too. And he's like, oh, I want to, but and I want him to write a story for our podcast. Is you got to have obstacles to have a good story, right? And what is the opposition, and what are you going to have to go through? And then the story has had plenty of those, and the sequels, I'm sure, going to have some more revelations, and we'll see how true it all. Some of it's written in the future, so I don't know where it's going to go.
Only the future will tell. But who do you think would most enjoy your stories the most? What audience demographics or psychographics, let's call it, and why?
Yeah, I love demographic and psychographics. Yeah, I will say that that I have what's been the most impressive to me is to see people of different religions and different faiths, and people who may have no belief in reincarnation whatsoever really enjoy my stories. And my most important why I do it is that to open minds and to get people just to think outside their normal belief and look at things a little bit differently. And one of the things, I'm just going to kind of plug my podcast a little bit, which is, it's about reincarnation and past life stories, whether fictional or factual, or any kind of metaphysical kind of message. I've got somebody writing a story about ghosts that's a comedy. We're not taking it all too seriously. It's not super heavy stuff. In fact, I won't allow any horror. But if you have a story that's like between 1,000 and 3,000 words, which is of course what I keep telling Bruce I want you to do. But if you have a story like that, and that you can, submit to the podcast, we'd love to hear it. And then we'll get it, either the writer can read it or an actor can read it. So all these stories have different, and I just want more of these stories out there in the world. I think that the more there are, the more the world can change. And so there's, I think that, for example, I wrote lyrics to a song for one other story I wrote that's on the reincarnation. It says, the soul has no gender, no creed, and no race. Love can be found in any face. And we start realizing, and I know you know this from what you do, we've been different lives and different nationalities and different races and different socioeconomic backgrounds and different religions. Then how can you have racism or sexism or, any of that if you've been everything? Like, how can you be that judgmental? So I think it's really a beautiful thing.
That's true. Now, how does that story fit into your mission with your Life is a Trip podcast, though?
Basically, I have one series of 4 novels called the Duet Stories, and it's mostly a love story with reincarnation. And so you go to the couple today and then go back to some of their past lives. And the new trilogy is a mystery, kind of like a Da Vinci Code meets Outlander with reincarnation theme. Like, so it's got its really epic love story, and they're tracing a mystery and the prophecy and all of this kind of stuff. And so, but I've got my books, but I want more stories. There's over 1.5 billion people on the planet who believe in reincarnation, 30% of Americans, but there are not enough stories. So I just wanted to get more stories out there. And there are a lot of people, I'm sure you've had with your clients, that have a story that's more like an account, like, here's what I remember. But if we can, I actually did a class on how to turn your story into a story. And to be able to nurture other writers and encourage them. When I did the first contest for the story, I had more fun telling people who won that they won than I would have if I'd won a contest. It was such a rewarding experience.
Exactly. Can you put a link to your podcast and how people will know about it on my group
Yes, I think I'll put it in the group. I mean, I could put it in chat, but chat kind of gets lost once
chat,
we have the
and then put it
recording.
in the group too, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
And one more question. And there are so many more, and I would have to do this again sometime because there's so many more things I'd like to talk to you about. But I would not be forgiven by the people in my group if I didn't ask you about this because this comes up many different times. Do you really believe that everything happens for a reason? And can you share with us those 5 reasons bad things happen and just summarize them?
Yes. Okay. So first of all, do I believe it? Yes. And I'll give you a link to this in your group too. There's on my Reasons Why it's called reasonswhy.com. My Reasons Why website. What I do is I have a list of what I call the basic assumptions. And that I tell people if these basic assumptions, if you believe that these basic assumptions, then I can explain every reason why, every bad thing through one of the 5 reasons that they happen. And that includes belief in a higher power. It doesn't have to be religion. It can be God is love or energy or something. But there is, like even Einstein said, that there's some sort of creative force. I mean, you can't deny, he said, I can't be an atheist because I know some energy or intelligence created all this. I can't deny that. So you have to believe in that and some of the aspects of it. But if these things align with you, because I can't talk somebody into believing some of those things, but if they align with you, then every bad thing can be explained. In fact, I have a list of 90 something bad things and how each one of them can be explained. And so in that regard, yes. And just as an FYI, the Reasons Why book doesn't get into reincarnation, though. If you believe in reincarnation, it adds a little more dimension to it.
Hmm.
And as far as the 5 reasons why, first I'll kind of give you the big reason why, right? What do all the 5 reasons have in common? And it's to get you to change something, right? That just like me, why did my landlord raise the rent? That's not one of the worst reasons, bad thing that you can have. There are a lot worse things that can happen. But that happened to get me off my butt and go on this adventure of this year. And I will tell you that, the teaser on this is I still don't know where I'm going to end up. I mean, I'm living in a hotel and I could go anywhere tomorrow. Like there is nothing. I'm just waiting for them to tell me what they want me to do and where they want me to go. And then I'll just go. But it's to get you to change something. So the first reason why is, and it has to tie back to the fact that, one of the beliefs is that you have a soul. The soul will choose a body and become you, right? So I look at those as the 3 cells. And so the soul is your higher self. You can call it your spirit self, whatever you want to call it. You can call it the super ego if you want to use Freud. You can call it superconscious if you want to use Jung. And then the body is, and then the blending of the two is the conscious, the mind, the ego if you're in Freud. And then the subconscious is the body. And when I realized that the subconscious is the body, that was just like, like that. I'm thinking about that emoji that looks like the head's blowing, you blow your mind kind of emoji. And so the first one is subconscious sabotage. And that is basically when your subconscious or your body is sabotaging you. One of my favorite stories to exemplify that was when a friend of mine was a workaholic. She was going to work all weekend on Labor Day weekend. And she picks up Thai food and twists her ankle on the curb as she walks out of the Thai restaurant. Her body was going, hell no, I'm not working all weekend. That body was not going to let that happen. And so we have to understand, and the more we can get to know our bodies, and I even subscribe to the theory, which is under the Huna religion, if anybody knows what that is, but they say name your body. And when you get a name for your body, and your body will tell you what its name is, you can't tell them. And you start talking, say, what do you want to do today? How can I make you happy today? And you can also discipline them and say, I got to get this project done. But if I get this project done by 2 o'clock, I'll take you out and we'll do something fun for you. And the body will focus that. but otherwise you'll be distracted all day because it doesn't want to do the work. So, there's a lot of really powerful stuff in terms of how the body or the subconscious, however you want to look at it, can sabotage us. So I won't tell all of them, but I will say the last one is the fifth reason is that could be a blessing in disguise. And for me, and for writing this story and being able to share with all of you and seeing how it impacts people, and also my own life and how it's just changed so much. I mean, the gift of meeting this person, no matter where the end, was such a huge gift. And so can you regret that? So what if you had pain, as long as you had lesson and learning, and then you could take it to something better. It's a wonderful thing.
And what put this whole thing in motion, I guess you call it the linchpin, when you pull out the pin, everything follows after it, is you getting your rent raised.
Yes. Right. And I just can't help but believe they made that happen.
What was the reason for that? Well, your landlord wanted to make more money, obviously, but then again, what did it have to do? And that was a very good point.
Yeah. Yeah. So it feels like a bad thing, but if you have a little bit of a mindset of and I mean, like when I first wrote the book, I was going through bankruptcy, foreclosure, losing my house. I had a relationship end. My dog died. I mean, I had a lot of crap happening. Not that there are people going through a lot worse, okay? But it was just, and I was like, there has to be a reason. I have to understand what the whys are for this. But even in really dark stuff, like, I mean, I have a chapter in my book about people with cancer, and there are a lot of people with cancer saying it was the best thing that ever happened to them. And you and I go, no, but maybe it did get them on a new road. And maybe that new road helped them heal, because maybe the why of it was to get them to change something. And to go down a new path.
I think a lot of people are going to be interested in that. So if you could tell us also in my group where they can pick up that book about why bad things happen, I think they would really enjoy that.
Well, I will tell you that if you pre-order my We Meet Again, which is the first book in the trilogy, the trilogy is called We Meet Again, but if they pre-order it, I will give anybody a free copy of the Reasons Why book. And pre-order it for 99 cents. So like,
you heard it here. Hold it to it.
Hold me to it. And make sure to let me know, because I'm not just going to give the link to download the Reasons Why book, but if you want it, let me know, and I'd be thrilled to be able to share it with you.
So before we close, a couple of things I also want to tell you about our next show. First up, I recently completed a couple of downloadable programs consisting of MP3 audios and PDF ebooks. One consists of a collection of, as I said, MP3s and ebooks. And this one of them is a past life regression downloadable program. Obviously, because that's what I do. Besides doing private past life regression, I also make it a lot more affordable for people who want to do it with downloadable. And that gives you a choice of 6 different time periods in which to experience a past life. So every time you use it, you can go to a different lifetime. The second is just the opposite, a future life progression program, which, as the name implies, is a trip to a future lifetime. Now, as with the past life regression program, again, each time you use it, you could access what's called a different potential future lifetime. Now, they're $49 each. You can get both of them for $69. And after the show, by the time the night is over, I'll be posting more complete information on how to get them in the group. And second, as most of you probably know, I also train students in how to conduct past life regression and therapy and become a board-certified past life regression therapist, part-time or full-time. For more than 40 years, I've been doing this in live classes and lately one-on-one online. And I've been working on an online, on-demand, I think what's called an evergreen training that looks like it's going to top out at about 23 modules with a PDF training manual with scripts that'll be over 50 pages long and have more than 50 scripts. Also a bunch of extra peripheral material, which will help you do the job right. Oh, by the way, you'll also get a 3 years mentorship from me thrown into the mix. I expect everything to come together and be ready for release in about 2 months. This was supposed to be done months ago, but Murphy's Law, everything takes longer than you expect it to take. I also expect it to retail in the $3,000 range. In the meantime, I'm going to release what's known as a beta version as a test run to get feedback from students and also work out the inevitable bugs. It'll contain everything in the final alpha version, along with the board certification. I'm going to offer that only to an initial group of 15 people for just $500. And I'm working out the logistical details of that. Now, if this is something that might be of interest to you, becoming a full or part-time past life regression therapist, or maybe incorporating it into your own existing business or profession, at $500 instead of $3,000, just for agreeing to complete the program and give me some feedback about the beta version, then please drop me a line at either my email, which is drkaloski@gmail.com, or drkaloski@gmail.com, or direct message me. That's an easy way to do it too, right on Facebook. And I'll put you on the short list and get back to you when I'm ready to roll out the beta version, which should be in a couple of weeks at the most. Probably right after, I'm thinking right after Labor Day here in the United States, because this is vacation time for a lot of people and their minds are on that last, getting in that last vacation with the kids. And also in the meantime, I can send you over a working brochure to you since the webpage is being designed as we speak and isn't up just yet. Now on to our next show. The title is The Conundrum of Karma. Why the name conundrum? Because I like the word. Think about it. Conundrum. Well, I think you're going to like this one. As a matter of fact, I know you're going to like it because every time I or one of the members of my group do a post about this subject in the group, it gets a ton of comments, more than any other topic. Anyway, Webster's defines the word conundrum as an intricate and difficult problem, a question or problem having only a conjectural answer. And that definition is a perfect description of karma. Because therein, think about it, therein lies the crux of the matter, because there is really no clear-cut consensus on the subject. There definitely is, however, no shortage of opinions, beliefs, and theories surrounding the subject of karma. Now, in my book, Your Journey Was Never Meant to End, I titled this chapter in which I discussed karma, the complexities of karma. And karma and complex is an understatement. Some even call karma a big con job. Now, why would people say that? You'll have to tune in to find out. So join me 2 weeks from tonight on Wednesday, August 28th at 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time for the Conundrum of Karma on the next episode of The Spiritual Hitchiker's Practical Guide to the Afterlife and Beyond. We'll be totally on Facebook Live within the group for that one. And tell your friends about us. Remember, since this show is normally done within the Facebook group, they'll have to be a member to tune in. And this particular, just a reminder, this particular show, this particular Zoom is being recorded. It will be, I'm sure, on both my group and in Brownell's group. She'll be posting that when the recording is done. And tell your friends about us too, okay? A big thank you to Brownell for being my guest tonight. And I urge you to pick up her short story, The End, and also the first book in her new trilogy, Till We Meet Again.
We Meet Again.
That was the name of a song too.
Yeah, I know. This is just We Meet Again.